people somehow inexplicably would call me a Christian nationalist for literally no reason at all. But that is because people haven't actually tried to define it. So that's what CNN, I think, is trying to do. But of course, they're warning against it. So they've got a documentary that is called The Rise of Christian Nationalism, and it's apparently going to air in just a couple weeks. The CNN anchor behind the project, her name is Pamela Brown. She interviewed Douglas Wilson. Doug Wilson is an Idaho pastor in Moscow, Idaho. He identifies as a Christian nationalist. And she said, quote, the response to that report was overwhelming and highlighted the need to better understand this movement working to redefine America as a Christian nation. So you can already kind of see the bias in their language there, as if America doesn't have a Christian foundation, which of course it does. But she goes on to say in the home, in a marriage, in schools, and in government. This journalist Brown defines Christian nationalism as an ideology rooted in the belief that the United States was founded as a Christian nation and that its laws and institutions should reflect Christian values. Well, again, like I would be hard pressed to understand how a Christian could argue against that. I mean, there's no such thing as neutrality. So it's either going to be Christianity, Islam, secular progressivism. Now, I do think that we should have religious liberty. I don't think we should force people to worship a certain way, to pray a certain way, or to be Christian. But if a worldview always has to inform law, because it does, every law speaks to a moral truth. People say you can't legislate morality. Of course you do. Every piece of legislation is a form of morality. And our worldview is going to be reflected. Like Jesus is king can't be compartmentalized, just like the Muslim doesn't believe that their belief should be compartmentalized. Certainly, the secular progressive doesn't believe that their belief about gender or abortion should be compartmentalized. They're bringing the fullness of their belief system into the voting booth, into their PTA meetings, into the city council, into their classrooms, into every public sphere that they occupy. And Christian conservatives alone are told, you can't do that. Everyone else can, but you can't do that. When you do that, that's a form of fascism. Well, this journalist pointed to the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service as a time of, quote, unprecedented alignment between Christian nationalists and the Trump administration. And so here she is saying that, Saudi.
Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist and prominent Christian nationalist, was assassinated. It became a rallying call for those who believed in his message.
Memorial service was one of the most potent examples of this shift in our culture that we're experiencing right now, where a large segment of American Christians are being activated by these ideas, radicalized by these ideas that say that they are the persecuted ones and that they need to stand up for Christians' rights.
Okay, saw Glenn Beck on there. I was also there at that memorial. It was an incredible day. I don't think Charlie called himself a Christian nationalist. Maybe I could be wrong by that. But people who throw out this moniker, it really is a scare tactic. It's to say Allie Stuckey or Charlie Kirk, they're not just Christians. They're a radical form of Christian, actually, that you should not be supportive of. And if you listen to them, you're extreme too. This whole idea to say that true Christianity is only true, genuine, Jesus-like Christianity if it's private and you vote progressive is so dumb. It's so dumb. If you intertwine your faith with your politics, which again, every single person of every faith or non-faith does, then you are seen as some kind of extremist. And yes, Charlie did believe in the gospel. And he talked about that wherever he went. But Charlie was actually like a very big tent guy, a lot more than I am, by the way. And so if they are calling Charlie, who is a moderate in a lot of ways, if they are calling him a Christian nationalist, then you're all Christian nationalists too. So just get over your fear of being called that. Brown sounded skeptical as she described a church community where women taught to submit to their husbands claimed they were living fulfilling lives. Satnine.
Well, Pastor Wilson leads a growing network of conservative Christian churches and preaches a strict biblical interpretation of various issues. His followers are taught to follow specific gender roles where wives submit to their husbands and make being a mother and homemaker their primary role, while the husband acts as the head of the household and makes the executive decisions for the family. For my upcoming documentary, I embedded with a tight-knit conservative church community in Southeast Texas that belongs to Wilson's network of churches. The women there told me they're flourishing in their role as submissive wives.
She's shocked. Shocked, I tell you. I love how she said embedded, like she went as a spy. Like, did she pretend to be a trad wife too, just so they would talk to her? Yeah, wives who submit to our husbands, I would say, are much happier than wives who don't. Oh, who's happy in like a power struggle? But by the way, also those of us who believe in Ephesians 5 because we believe in the authority and inerrancy of God's word, we also know those of us who live in these marriages with our husbands that we respect and love so much, that submission isn't some scary word. Like, it's not like your husband ruling over you with an iron fist. It's certainly not having opinions or not having a voice or not having a personality. Like, it is your husband loving you and cherishing you and taking up this mantle of making the very difficult leadership decisions for your family that I am so glad every day I don't have to make. And so it's actually like a wonderful relief for women to have this leader and to have this ultimate decision maker, especially when you're in a healthy marriage where your husband respects your wisdom and respects you and you talk through things together and you really do have just like this wonderful love and friendship. And at the end of the day, like, he is the one who bears the responsibility for the spiritual formation of our family, who makes the decisions for our family. It's a good thing. Of course, these women are thriving. They feel happy. Like, they feel relieved by that. Can you, of course, have a really mean husband who is abusive in a variety of ways? Of course, but that happens. It's not Ephesians 5 that is causing that. It is sin nature that is causing that. And as we just saw, like, I'm much more interested to hear about the views of women that these Middle Eastern migrants that we have been importing into our country and into the West, like, how does that affect marriage? Like, how about a little expose on some of the female genital mutilation that's happening in places like Minneapolis because of the high concentration of Somalians there? Like, if we want to talk about how women are treated, maybe not like loving Christian marriages where they're making sourdough to try to find some kind of hidden Handmaid's Tale narrative going on here. It's really important to us that you subscribe to Blaze TV. I'm so thankful for everyone who watches on YouTube and watches on Apple Podcasts. It's really important to me to have a free version of this podcast for everyone to be able to access, but we can put different kind of content behind the paywall, and it's also a way to protect ourselves from censorship. Go to blazetv.com/Allie. You can subscribe, get access to all that content.